Hey, everybody, welcome on back. It's the Rubbin is Racing podcast with Spider and Large. That's how it says it right here, and Spider is right there. He's in Chicago holding it down with a couple of fire suits behind him. We also have Moonhead live from a remote location. We have Manoli as the voice of God on this one. We'll be doing all the producing and editing. And Quiggs, where can we guess Quiggs is right now? Is he in the safe space with Cardi B? And where's Quiggs?
He's writing Kamala's concession speech, I think.
Is he really? Yeah. Absolutely broken to shreds after the results of last night's election. That's Quiggs, because he's big lib Sean Q. Rubbin is Racing is presented by Cabo Wabo Tequila. You should know that by now. This is the penultimate episode of Rubbin is Racing for 2024, and Cabo Wabo has been with us throughout, and we really appreciate it. As Spider is holding it up like he's in the VIP room at some club. But Cabo Wabo, for people who don't know, it's Mexican tequila with an undeniably American attitude. It's not just tequila, it's damn good thick cut 100% Blue Weber agave tequila, and it's the official tequila partner of NASCAR. So add a bold splash to race day watching with Cabo Wabo tequila. And if you're headed to Phoenix for this final weekend of racing in the Cup Series, celebrate race day with Cabo Wabo. But we want to remind you to leave the driving to the professionals this weekend and every weekend, so please enjoy the thick cut, bold taste of Cabo Wabo tequila responsibly. Grab your buds, a bottle of Cabo Wabo, and have the boldest race day experience ever. You got to be 21 years or older. You have to handle this stuff responsibly. It's absolutely delicious, and we appreciate your support, Cabo Wabo. All right, boys. Welcome on back. Fines everywhere. I don't know what we should do. I guess we'll talk about it in a little bit, maybe get through some other stuff. But NASCAR chose violence this week, and there are fines a go-go. I spoke to somebody a little bit earlier to see whether or not these fines are real or not, and I've come to some conclusions. But before we get started, I'm going to just bang out the Nobody's Cooler segment. I was going to give it to that Jason Kelsey guy just because I loved it so much to watch him smash a phone and have some fucking accountability for some of these keyboard warriors. But instead, we're not going to talk about him too much on the show, but he did have a gutsy fucking win. So against my better judgment, because I rarely give Nobody's Cooler to the winner of the race, but we're going to give it to Ryan Blaney. His win is being overshadowed with all this controversy, but he was panned by fans for, quote-unquote, letting Reddick win the week before. And he climbs through the field and wins in a must-win situation. He took the lead from Chase Elliott with 14 laps to go, pulled away to win by more than 2 seconds. So he walks away with the championship for berth, his third win of the year, his second at Martinsville, and the 13th of his career. Ryan Blaney is a clutch playoff driver who has a very good shot at becoming a repeat champion. So congratulations to him. He's nobody's cooler than Ryan Blaney this week. Headlines and rumors. I had seen that the Hollywood Reporter is reporting that 61-year-old Tom Cruise is talking to Paramount about a follow-up to Days of Thunder. Tom Cruise, Days of Thunder. So he's going to be about 63 at the very earliest before this gets off the carpet. Spider, you going to see Days of Thunder Part 2 starring a 63-year-old Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Okay.
Tom Cruise, I mean, obviously a famous actor, but isn't one of the big things for him is that he does his own stunts? Mm-hmm. So, like, you can keep pointing to the fact that he's 63. How old are you, Large?
No, so he's 61 right now, but this is in pre-production, so I'm just guessing out that the earliest we'd see it. I am 52. I'm going to turn 53 this year on Christmas Day, if you want to send along any gifts, December 25th, 1971. And I can't fit in a race car, and I can't do anything physical at all anymore.
I think now you could fit. You're giving
now
yourself
I can fit.
way
yes.
too little credit.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely seeing this movie. First of all, Tom Cruise is a guy that does his own stunts. That's like his whole reputation. Amongst that, he also produces some of like the best action movies, whether it be Days of Thunder or like Top Gun. The Top Gun series has been awesome, and I think the most recent one, that was, in my opinion, kind of like the last big blockbuster film we've had in theaters. I can't remember, and I don't think there's been another movie since Top Gun that I've had to like make it a priority to get into the theater to watch. Also, I think not to discredit NASCAR drivers, and I very much am of the opinion they are athletes and very talented people. That being said, to act in a movie as a NASCAR driver, I think is even less rigorous on the body. Probably it's not like
Right.
he's like Men in the Black or jumping out of fucking airplanes or zip lining. I don't know. I think the stunts will be relatively accessible, and it should be a great pairing. He's produced a great movie in the NASCAR space before that I really enjoyed. I know some NASCAR purists have polarizing opinions on what's Talladega Nights, and I think on the flip side
Wait,
of that,
Days of Thunder or Talladega Nights?
Talladega Nights. But what I
Okay,
was going to say in that
yeah.
breath is Days of Thunder seems to be kind of universally loved and appreciated, whereas Talladega Nights, one that is probably one of the most popular, seems to be a little bit controversial.
I never
in the
saw the
NASCAR
movie.
space.
Spider, I never saw the movie Days of Thunder until a couple of years ago when you and I were watching Daytona and we had the rain delay.
I was going to say, it's the best movie for rain delay, too. It sucks when
Right.
the rain comes, but if they put that on, at least it's, like, great to watch.
So I will line up to see Maverick 2. That's where these conversations started. I guess it's announced that they're going to do this Top Gun Maverick 2. And I'll line up to see Mission Impossible Part 8. I love that fucking franchise. And I'll line up to see Days of Thunder. I'm not necessarily a Tom Cruise simp, but there are a couple of franchises, to your point, that I will go see, even if he's doing it from a fucking wheelchair. So I'm excited about it.
I'm not overly a big Tom Cruise fan either, but I respect his body of work, and I would welcome another movie.
Excellent. Moonhead, would you go see this?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You a big fan of it first?
I'll be honest. I'm not a huge movie guy. I've seen it like maybe twice. But I think it'd be cool to see Days of Thunder Part 2. I'd have to go support.
Wasn't that movie? Sorry, I know we're probably talking about this at
I don't give a
length
shit.
here.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, and also I forget which rain delay it was, not only did they show Days of Thunder, but they also often show like a behind-the-scenes documentary about how the race was or how the movie was produced. And if I'm not mistaken, that car ran on the track during active. Was it Daytona? I don't even know, but I need to go back and watch this. But the story behind how the movie was filmed is just as good as the movie itself. So definitely one of my favorite things. The silver lining of a rain delay.
I know this isn't a movie podcast, I get that, but we can do whatever the fuck we want on this show. And the reason I bring it up is I also think that this is good for NASCAR. Having something like this come out. A friend of mine, Todd Grisham, had just released a new video game, a boxing video game on all major platforms. I think it's called Undisputed. That's good for boxing. Boxing hasn't had a very good video game in years, so I think it really is good for the sport, and you get to play with all these legends, past and present. Having Daytona 500, having a Days of Thunder type thing is excellent for the sport, and NASCAR does need that, just like it needs a Netflix special, which leads me to my next point. Chase Elliott, in an interview, will you be interested, or will you allow them to kind of come in and do stuff with you in the next part of this Netflix series that they're going to do season 2 with? And he gave a simple no. People are losing their minds because of it, because he's quote-unquote the most popular driver in the world. We'll see. You can vote early and vote often for most popular driver in the world, and Kyle Busch is the candidate that we're supporting as a podcast.
Yeah,
what do you think about Chase still continually saying, "Hey, I don't want to do that"? I think there's a better way to handle it.
I felt really good about the timing of this, Large. I mentioned that my personal pick would have been Kyle Busch.
Yes.
And granted, anyone who's listened to this show at length probably knows how I feel about Kyle Busch. I'm a big Kyle Busch guy. And I personally would have voted for him. I think he's kind of slept on in that regard. That being said, I'm saying it would probably be somewhere along him, Blaney, or Reddick for me personally. And then this Chase Elliott video comes out, and people were like, "Oh, Kyle Busch, Spider, like give me whatever Spider's smoking." Whatever. Have your own opinion on that. But to hear Chase Elliott say, like, you know, just a testament to where his priorities at. Maybe it's because he's in the midst of a championship run at that point, and that was what his main focus was on. But I just think it's crazy for everyone to be comfortable crowning him most popular driver year after year when it doesn't seem like he's a main priority for, you know, the other half of racing and being the most popular driver and helping grow the sport and being an ambassador. Kyle Busch, feel any type of way about my opinion from last week. He goes to Brexton races, hands out tickets to all these little kids to get that whole new generation at the track. I mean, sure, he's not winning as much as he used to, but and then Ryan Blaney, sure, if you're going to make the case for Chase Elliott, he's focused on winning a championship. He's focused on being a race car driver. You know who else is in the midst of a championship run? They're second, actually, Straight is my guy Ryan Blaney. Large, how was Ryan Blaney when we pulled up to his hauler ahead of that Miami playoff race that he easily could have won? He spoke to us at length. The Netflix crews were right there. He is in it. Ryan Blaney is head over heels going all in. So that's why I'm saying we should not be as quick to just vote for Chase Elliott year after year. He should not be the most popular driver. Sure, maybe if it's based on whose merch sells the best or who has the most followers, but I really don't think that's the barometer of who's the most popular. And I think it should be much more of a carousel as opposed to just the Chase Elliott parade year after year. That doesn't really benefit anyone.
Muna, do you hate Chase Elliott for saying that he's not going to be part of a Netflix special in any kind of considerable way next year?
No, I don't, because I even tweeted during the Martinsville race when they showed that picture of William Byron's family trying to watch the race and a boom mic guy sticking a mic down in their little family gathering. I can see why somebody wouldn't want to be a part of that. Now, at the same time, I do understand there is a bit of a responsibility, I think, that comes with being the most popular driver, and I don't think Chase always does the best job of doing that and showing some personality. But at the same time, I think that that's just Chase. I think he's kind of a quiet, shy guy, so I can almost appreciate that even though he's not putting himself out there, he's kind of staying true to himself at the same time. And the mystery, I think, kind of can make him popular, because when I was a kid, Junior wasn't out here doing all sorts of TV stuff. Like, when I was a kid, I never would have thought Dale Jr. would be in the booth for races when I got older. Like, it was hard to even see him happy to do an interview unless he won a race. So I think it'll come with age and experience kind of in the media and stuff. But I don't think he owes anybody anything, really, at the end of the day. He didn't choose to be the most popular driver. It just kind of happened.
I think Moonhead brings up a good point. Like, my first take, I was kind of critical of Chase, which isn't really what my kind of argument was about. You look at guys like Chase Elliott, and I think Martin Truex is another good example of a guy that's a little bit more reserved, quiet, and kind of speaks when spoken to. And I think that is completely fine. We live in a world where there's cameras everywhere. People always, the drivers can't get any semblance of privacy. Even back to when we were at Miami, I was bothering Chase, putting knuckles in his hands, in his face at the drivers' meeting. So, these guys never get a break. So I kind of respect those that are able to separate it. And I think Moonhead is right when he says Chase didn't ask for this. But with that being said, I think it's on NASCAR and us to elect a more popular driver, maybe someone that is willing to do some of the unnecessary on-camera stuff, or allow a Netflix documentary crew to follow them amidst the playoffs. I don't know. I think both can be true. I would like to see a little bit more personality from Chase. I understand he doesn't owe anyone anything. His job is to drive, not to be an extra in a Netflix doc. But I think there's a little bit of a happy medium there somewhere.
Yeah, like letting somebody into your house to watch you burn pancakes for your kids. And Denny Hamlin said, yes, set up a fucking GoPro in my shower. I don't care. Just do whatever you want. I'm down. I'm DTF, as the kids say. But beforehand, Spider saying that he wanted to vote for Kyle Busch, this is just a ceremonial thing. It's the most popular driver. The transformation that Kyle Busch has made over the past couple of years to where he's not being booed and shit anymore, and, having that streak end with the 19 seasons with the win, giving him a win, that's what we want to do, and that's what we're telling people to fucking do. So whether or not you don't understand it is up to you. Don't fucking question it, because that's what we want to do. Secondly, I think that Chase Elliott is bright enough that he sees these headlines that he's generating. I just don't think that they're good. So there is a medium. There is a medium to be like, oh yeah, the Netflix special. I'm sure they'll be doing a lot of stuff with me on the track, but I'm just not that guy. I'm just not that guy where they could go into my apartment, where they can go into my mansion and watch me build Legos. He couldn't say that because I'd be shitting on William, but he could easily do a little bit more than the one word answers, because he's an excellent driver. He's a very good person. He's always been very gracious with us. And for the most part, he just doesn't want to give you that inside lane to his life or lifestyle or whatever, and to where he's sacrificing babies and drinking their blood or whatever the fuck he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's also lost on people. Like, people think Chase is just a boring, like, non-personality guy. I think it's a testament to his shyness and lack of desire to do media stuff. But, I mean, he seems like one of the coolest dudes ever. Like, this guy not only races cars, if he's not racing, he's flying planes. Like, he is a cool dude that I would love to know more about. And I think he's just a little reserved. And, unfortunately, that's probably what's holding him back. But realistically, and the whole microcosm of this discussion we're having should not be me continuing to argue for Kyle Busch. Realistically, I think the most popular driver should be this year between Ryan Blaney and Tyler Reddick. And I think, hopefully, your takeaway from this argument, whoever's listening, is that we should be more open-minded than just awarding it to Chase year after year. I'm not saying bad things against Chase. I respect him for who he is, and I think he's great and deserving of the awards he's won in the past. But let's buck the trend moving forward. That's all.
Let's give it to Kyle Busch. That's what I'm saying. I'm going
Busch,
right back to
Blaney, or Reddick. I'm happy with.
Phoenix Raceway announced on Halloween that comedian Whitney Cummings will be the honorary starter for the championship race on Sunday, because apparently everyone else in the world was busy. Why the fuck is Whitney Cummings getting that job? She had a quote, I just realized the flag is checkered like my past. I don't, Whitney Cummings, I know who she is and the whole deal, but where does that, isn't there millions upon millions of people that could go in front of her and get the crowd into it than hearing her say, drivers, start your engines? Am I missing something? I see sometimes when we would go to the finals in Phoenix and they'd have a band playing that may not really jibe with the NASCAR crowd. So I can see that sometimes. This is a championship race, like you had Richard Petty's family out there doing it. You could have some sort of, war hero out there. You get the dude, Rob O'Neill, the guy who shot Osama bin Laden. He goes out there holding a fucking machine gun and driver start your engine. The whole place burns to the fucking ground. I think it would be awesome. Instead, it's Whitney Cummings.
Yeah.
Who is a friend. She does a lot of stuff with O'Malley. She's a very funny girl. I don't know. It's kind of just a swing and a miss. And we're just talking about entertainment now. Chase Elliott being in Netflix and Tom Cruise being in this and this. I don't know who the fuck signs off on that. Honestly, who the fuck signs off on something like this?
I'm not as mad as you, Large. I do kind of agree.
I don't know why I'm mad. Yeah, I don't know why.
I do kind of agree that I just think it doesn't, kind of make sense. Maybe,
yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to put some thought into who I think would be better. I don't have a better answer off the top of my head, but it just seems like, I don't know, for championship race, yeah. Was it years past they had Larry Fitzgerald there? Did we meet him at Phoenix?
Yeah, absolutely. He was at Phoenix. I don't know if he did driver start your engine, but you get a hometown fucking hero like that.
That could be good.
Anybody. You know what I mean?
Local to Phoenix would be cool, but I don't know.
Tim Waltz, he's not busy, right? Have him come out and do it, maybe. See what's up with that. The duck hunting outfit. I don't know. It's fucking weird. We're going to talk a lot about some of the stuff that had gone on at the race in Martinsville. We'll talk about it ad nauseum. Somebody had sent me a DM, which I thought was pretty helpful. His name is Josh. I guess I'll give his last name too, Josh Hayes. Lars, I know you like historical context, so I wanted to point out this kind of manipulation has been long running in NASCAR, even before the playoff racing and cutoffs in 1995. Going into the final race in Atlanta. Moonette, I don't know if you're going to remember this, but I'll kind of paraphrase what Josh had told me. Jeff Gordon was all but guaranteed a championship. He just had to lead at least one lap in the race and not finish last. And then Dale Sr., Dale Earnhardt, had to win the race. And therefore they would flip-flop and Dale would win and Jeff would come in second in the championship, right? In the chase thing. In order to combat Jeff Gordon finishing in last place, Hendrick Motorsports had fielded two more cars, or tried to field two more cars that they knew were going to be worse than Jeff Gordon. One of the guys did not qualify. Jack Sprague and then Jeff Purvis did. And so that's like manipulation that we get to see in 1995. They tried to throw a couple extra cars in there. And Jeff Gordon, by the way, did lead at least one lap, and he didn't come in last, so he became the champion in 1995, even though Dale Sr. had won that race. So a lot of people had reached out to try to give me some historical perspective on what had gone on this past week, the quote-unquote cheating that had gone on this past week, and how it's happened way before this playoff structure had started. It's a tale as old as time. So I just want to keep that in mind when we start talking about this shit. But let's talk about all the fucking drama that had gone on this weekend. In the trucks, Christian Eckes led 187 of 200 laps in Friday's truck race, but in a late race restart with 5 laps to go, he shipped Taylor Gray out of the groove after Gray beats him in a late race restart and then does the same to 2-time Truck Series champ Ben Rhodes. Gray and Rhodes were on the 40-lap fresher tires than Eckes at the time. Taylor Gray walked about 5 miles to confront him after the race. It was kind of cool. Taylor Gray's walking across the grid, and they had a great fucking camera angle on it. And the reason I know this is because Moonhead had clipped it out somewhere on social while he's yelling over it. Oh, man, he's going to fuck somebody up. It did. He looked like the fucking gunslinger kind of walking through town at high noon, and Moonhead's like, this is going to be fucking good. Somebody throw a fucking punch. And no punches were thrown, but there was some smoke, right? Either way, the championship 4 for trucks is going to be Christian Eckes, Corey Heim, Ty Majeski, and Grant Enfinger, the old man in the sea, which is the guy that I like. Then you fast forward to the next day, and the Xfinity Series, Eric Amarola sweeps Martinsville, gets a second win at Martinsville this season. We all know he's a part-time driver, so he gets the win on Saturday, but more eyes were on Chandler Smith, smacking Cole Custer after the race. Chandler Smith seems like a nice guy. He's not a very good punch thrower. And he did that thing where he kind of sissy slapped him and then jumped back. And Cole Custer seems to me like the kind of guy that can take a punch, so he just ate that slap, no problem. He's got that stone cold thing that he does and whatnot. I like Cole Custer a lot. But it was a little bit fucking disgraceful. But at least we got to see a slap, which wasn't enough for Moonhead. Again, he's like, that's the fucking punch you throw?
Oh,
Give me a review. Give me a review of that one, Moonhead, please.
It was so... I don't... Man, I got to be careful on this one. This one
Go
was
ahead.
Like, I mean, it was...
Yeah, you almost did it.
Chandler Smith kind of has that reputation anyway. Like, he's just... I don't want to say he's not likable, but like he's got a lot of enemies, and he talks a very, very big game. And to scream on the radio and say you're going to kick somebody's ass and then walk over there and do whatever that was. I mean, Cole Custer was literally laughing at him. I don't know if y'all saw the angle. Like, he laughed at him the whole way. That it was just, you got to commit at that point. Like, you've got to commit.
I think it's kind of nuts. First of all, Cole Custer's probably got like 50 pounds on Chandler Smith.
Yeah.
So for Chandler to slap a dude that much bigger than you, like, what do you expect's going to happen? And Cole actually kind of took it well. As you said, Moonhead, he just smiled in his face and laughed, which is honestly like, you can't hurt me kind of vibe. And I thought it was great. If I remember correctly, I think I sided with Jeb Burton in a Chandler Smith-Jeb Burton incident on Xfinity maybe last year. And Chandler Smith, like, included my tweet in his, like, highlight, like, making fun of Jeb Burton. And now just does the most make funnable moment I've ever seen. So, yeah, I think it was tough to see. But even, I mean, we're going to get into the Cup race, but I love the fact that both Trucks and Xfinity had some extracurriculars after the checkered flag flew this weekend. You could tell we're in the midst of NASCAR playoffs. It's fucking beautiful. As much as I think what Chandler Smith did was kind of the biggest pussy move ever. Although, in the same breath, it takes balls to slap a guy, like agitate a bit. I don't know. That's like literally poking the bear.
Cole Custer said right afterwards, he used the bumper on me, I used the bumper on him. I don't know how we're not even. And then he punches me in the face. I can't even tell if he really punched me in the face because it was so soft. Ooh, you never want somebody to say that about you. But at the end of the day, we'll go on to Phoenix. So either way, the championship 4 for Xfinity will be Justin Allgaier, defending series champ Cole Custer, A.J. Allmendinger, and Austin Hill. Don't you think that what Christian Eckes had done and what Chandler Smith had done, it was actually pretty good timing, because normally people be like, oh, we'll just put him in the wall in Phoenix. I think neither of the people who have smoke with Cole Custer or Christian Eckes, so that would be Chandler Smith and Taylor Gray, perhaps Ben Rhodes also, I don't think they're going to do shit to them in Phoenix, knowing how NASCAR has got the checkbook out. They got the rule book out, and they look like they're going to be enforcing stuff because they're going to be underneath a microscope this weekend trying to enforce some of the things that they had levied penalties and suspensions for the week before. So do you think, do you agree with me in that perspective? Will there be no backlash to either Cole Custer who's in the playoffs, or Christian Eckes, who's also one of the final Championship 4 drivers in the trucks and Xfinity this weekend? You know what I mean? Like, will somebody go after him?
I defer to Moonhead, and then I'll give my opinion.
The Custer deal, no, I think that's over. I think that ship has sailed. The Eckes one is interesting because what he didn't need to win that race, and he was locked into the Final Four. And obviously, late race caution. I get it. He wants to do everything he can to win the race. He's a race car driver, but you have to pick your battles in that situation. And two guys passing you on fresh tires, and you immediately just bombing off in the corner and running him up. Not just moving him. A lot of people are saying he just moved on me. He missed the corner completely. I wouldn't be shocked if he, at the very least, had a hard time with some of these guys. Do I think anybody's going to go out there and like straight up wreck him? No, but I definitely think he's not going to get a lot of breaks that he probably otherwise would have as a championship guy after doing that.
Will that stop you from betting on him? Like, is that something that people who like to responsibly bet through DraftKings for the Truck Series Championship? Is that one where we kind of leave Christian Eckes alone because there's some questions that can't be answered till they get on the track?
Well, I don't know, but it's definitely a question mark. But at the same time, it's Eckes. He's been strong all year. I mean, theoretically, they have to catch him to really mess with him unless he's lapping them. So he could go there and have the best truck and it not even be a problem. So I don't know if I'd hold off on betting on him, but it is always a possibility. Late race restart, or if he needs some help from some guys, he's probably not going to get it.
Spider, what do you think?
I don't think anything's going to happen.
Okay.
I don't know. I just think that right now we're under the microscope of like race manipulation more than ever. There's been, rumored suspensions and fines and whatnot that you talked about. And I think, don't get me wrong, that certainly exists, and it has existed a long time, as much as Josh said in his DM that he sent to us. I don't think it will happen as substantially on the championship race. I could be wrong, and I would welcome it. I would welcome to see some retaliation and some big drama. I just personally am not of the opinion we're going to see it. I feel like, and I don't have any facts to back this up, I feel like, at least for myself, I always fearmonger myself into thinking that, oh my God, they're going to get retaliation, something's going to happen. And then it just never really happens, or at least not to the extent that I prepare myself or think is going to. So I think I'm going to kind of reserve my expectations for this championship race. And honestly, not to get into the pick the tire segment, but I think the sports books and DraftKings kind of seem to say the same thing, because if you look, if I personally would be a little bit skeptical if I was of that opinion to bet on William Byron, who had all the help of the Chevys, and you look at him and he's favored over both Joey Logano and Tyler Reddick. So who's to say? I don't know. I think he will have just as good of a shot as anyone. So I don't know. I don't think it will be a big factor. I could be wrong. Maybe on the truck and Xfinity levels too, but I don't think, especially in Cup, that we'll see anything like that.
I didn't look at the lines for Xfinity, but we do know who the Championship 4 is. We'll leave the trucks alone for right now, even though I believe I'm going to place a responsible bet on Enfinger. But for the Championship 4 in Xfinity, you got Little Gator, Allgaier, you got Cole Custer, Allmendinger, and Austin Hill. Who do you got? I did not look at a line. I don't know who's a favorite in the for the Xfinity Championship. I don't know.
I'll take Allgaier.
Yeah, it's his year.
Yeah, I just like. He's like a veteran in that. I mean, it'd probably be between him and Cole Custer for me. Cole Custer's another guy that's just been kind of really, really good in the Xfinity level. I think it would be a cherry on top for him to get a championship. That would be his second Xfinity?
Back.
Yeah. So, I think that would be cherry on top before he moves back up to the Cup Series, especially in the name of, a silly season where people questioned, should it be Cole Custer? There were a lot of names thrown around, and Cole's kind of been patient at Stewart-Haas Racing. I know his obviously very significant family ties over there, and it doesn't really reek of nepotism. It seems like a well-deserved, valiant effort from what we've seen out of Cole the last couple of years, and I think it'd probably be between him or Gator for me. And I don't know. I'll take whatever guy you weren't going to take, Large. You didn't reveal your hand yet, so I know you're probably on the other guy.
No, you know what? I don't know if I like. I have a future on Allmendinger, which I regret.
Really?
Yeah, I do. But obviously, I know where his strengths are, and it's certainly not going to be in Phoenix. But I did put a future on Allmendinger, and I got some really good odds on it earlier in the year. Even though he's plus 2,000 to win this race, I just look now. I could see like a Sheldon Creed finally getting his first win, and nobody's celebrating it because everyone's celebrating the Xfinity champion or something. But I'm probably going to go for Justin Allgaier also. It's
All
about
right, so
time.
then give me Cole Custer.
Yeah, I think that's either one you can't go wrong with, which leaves you with either Allmendinger or Austin Hill that you have to die on that hill, Moonhead. So I'm assuming you're taking the heel.
I'll be honest, Allmendinger, I've got a feeling I could see it happening. Now, personally, like if I was picking first, I'd have taken Allgaier because he's due. He's second twice. All time, like one of the all time Xfinity guys, I think, when it's all said and done. So he's due. But for the sake of this, if my options are Allmendinger and Austin Hill, definitely gonna take Allmendinger there, just with the experience and kind of previous years and how things have gone. So not to shit on Austin Hill, obviously he's had a great year, but I don't. Austin Hill at Phoenix, I don't think I can take him.
I was going to say, if the championship were Talladega, Atlanta, Daytona, sign me up for the RCR car.
Yeah. By the way, I'd like to have him on next season. He's one of the guys that we talk about quite a bit. And then, James is very good. James Hallis, shout out at getting us people in order to talk on the show. Let's put a pin in that. I'd like to speak to Austin Hill.
You know what? Maybe I'll take Austin Hill to win the championship, and then we can interview him shortly thereafter. Because you're right, Large. He's a guy that I feel like we've kind of taken our shots at. We've never really had the opportunity to have him on the show or kind of hear from him firsthand. So, open invite to Austin Hill if you're listening. Yeah,
I agree with you 100%. All right, let's go on to Cup. By the way, this is our second to last show, as I was talking to you guys about at the top of the show. Spider, I believe we have the champion in the New York office next week.
Yeah, I believe so. I need to actually book my travel as soon as we're off the air here.
Okay, so
I will be coming to visit.
Next week, it's going to be myself and Spider in the studio with whoever is the champion for this 2024 season in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I'm looking forward to that. So should you. Let's talk about the Cup race in Martinsville. We'll start with two guys that we mentioned, one of them and the other one kind of briefly. Martin Truex started on the pole, but he had another rough day. A couple of speeding penalties. He spun out. Just feel bad for Martin at this point. I get the feeling that he's like, I just want to be fucking done. He's running a throwback scheme this weekend in Phoenix, which is pretty fire, but didn't have a great day in Martinsville. And neither did Kyle Busch, who had a fucking tire fall off. And he was even laughing about it on the radio. He's like, have a tire ready for me. And he's kind of laughing it off. And it just, I don't know, is indicative of the season that both of these wily veterans have had. Chase started off P2 and he won stage 1, Chase Elliott. Hocevar. Spider, can you explain to me what happened to Carson Hocevar in Martinsville? Did you watch this? Did you get enough of the analyst comments? Because he got flamed. He got flamed by the people, and it seemed like he had chosen violence.
You know what he was doing, Large? He was driving like I would do on iRacing, or like I do in iRacing at Michigan on the trucks. I just stay on the inside lane, and I just dive bomb people. And the second there's an ounce of a window, I just slide them up the track, and I take the spot they were in, and it works perfect. The difference is I do this on a video game, not in the biggest level of racing. So I understand the broadcast frustration. The first couple times, it was they kind of were a little bit reserved and professional with their analysis, and then I think by the end of it, it was like they were just flat out annoyed. We saw it probably 3 or 4 different times, and I don't know. But I will say, and before we get to the whole manipulation part, it's very funny to me that Carson Hocevar went quickly from, balls to the wall, dive bombing everyone, which I kind of, and I've been critical of Carson Hocevar in the past. I was enjoying watching. He wasn't taking out any of my drivers really. I was enjoying it. But to see him go from that to just instantly all of a sudden his car couldn't get by William Byron. He was just side by side with Austin back in that pack kind of at the end of the race there was very interesting and a testament to, again, Josh's DM and the fact that this has been around as long as NASCAR has been a sport. So, yeah, I don't know. That would be my take. Carson Hocevar, though, it seemed like, and at one point, did he get Harrison Burton? I feel like Jeff Burton was towing the line of just being like, fuck this kid for a minute there, while also trying to be professional in the broadcast booth.
DJ said, Dale Jarrett said, the goodwill is running out with the other drivers. I mean, they really were hard on the kid. And I think he's a very good race car driver, and he's reckless, makes mistakes that rookies are supposed to make. He still is Rookie of the Year with a bullet, I believe.
Yeah.
I think Lee Diffie had said, I hope a dingo eats his baby, or some bullshit that Lee Diffie would fucking say. But I haven't seen people dogpile. I didn't see people dogpile on Austin Dillon as much when he took out the fucking field at the end of the race earlier this season. So I just think that Carson Hocevar probably had a tough time watching that race back.
Yeah, Moonhead, I know you're a big Carson Hocevar guy, and I don't know. I guess what's your take on this? Do you think he's truly losing goodwill in the garage? I go back and forth between being like far and away Rookie of the Year, exciting young talent to watch. I can't get enough of this kid. And then part of me is like, the other half of me is like, you know what? Dale Jarrett and Jeff Burton are right. Like, this kid is like, fuck this kid. Like, the good and bad on my shoulder goes back and forth. Speak to me about this situation.
I mean, they shouldn't have been in his way. And really, that was the big thing. But no, I get it. He definitely needs to. It's a balance, right? You don't want to take the, I guess, aggression and excitement out of him, because that's kind of what makes Carson good, is the fact that he gets 110% out of the car pretty much all the time. But there is going to come a time, and I think it's slowly happened over the year. Obviously, Martinsville's fresh on everybody's mind, but as he matures as a driver, and I think gets more experience in Cup, and probably gets wrecked by some Cup drivers for doing things like this a couple of times, it'll start to click with him, and that's when I think we'll start seeing him actually like win races and stuff. Because people forget, you can look back to the early 2000s. A lot of the guys we look at now as like the either freshly retired guys or the guys who are still the veterans of the game are guys who were probably getting yelled at and had the same stuff being said about them 20 years ago. Kyle Busch, hell, even Tony Stewart was a loose cannon when he came to NASCAR, and he was a loose cannon for a while. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a never-ending cycle in NASCAR. There's always going to be that guy, that rookie who's a little aggressive. People don't like it. And then at some point, he earns their respect somehow, whether it's through them giving him a hard time or him just naturally maturing. So we will see. But as far as Martinsville goes, I mean, he ran over Harrison Burton and Daniel Hemrick. Like, boo-hoo.
Yeah.
He's like,
again, Moonhead, that's why I'm saying I go back and forth, because I think watching him carve through the field is just as exciting as the sacrifices in Hemrick and Burton that we have to
and
make.
not shitting on those guys, but it's not like he was wrecking championship guys.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I said he wasn't wrecking my cars this week, so it's fine with me. But yeah, I mean, it does unfortunately suck for Harrison Burton, who's now got one more Cup race before he goes back to the Xfinity Series. So I'm sure he wants every opportunity he has.
You think Carson Hocevar, let's look forward, if we both agree that, if all three of us, agree that he's a very talented driver, I think he'd probably make a good champion. It seems like he's very social. I mean, we saw him at the kickball thing. We see how he interacts with some people on social media. He's a big guy, and not a heavy set guy by any stretch of imagination. He's built like a javelin, but he's 6'3" or something like that. So he's got some differentiating things about him, which I think make him just very interesting. So I hope when he does kind of pull this together and become the total package, I think NASCAR's be better off for it.
Is this a rhetorical question? I want your guys' opinion.
Go.
Who wins first? Ty Gibbs, Carson Hocevar? Is that a stupid question? At this point, I feel like it's a fair question.
It wasn't at the beginning of the season because we were so high on Ty Gibbs, and I still think that Ty Gibbs gets a win before Carson Hocevar. I do. I think Ty Gibbs has not settled into mediocrity, but he's settled into being a consistent top 10 driver, which I think puts him close. Because when Hocevar does finish in the top 10s, people make a bigger deal out of it. So I think Ty is silently a better driver than Carson Hocevar, also a team car owner now and whatnot. So I think my answer is still the same, but you're right. It's a much more reasonable question to ask than it would have been at the beginning of the season. If that's fair. Do you agree with that? Or
yeah, Moonhead, do you agree with Large?
I think Gibbs should win before Hocevar. I think the driver debate is honestly a toss-up just because Spire is hit and miss. They've been really, really good this year, but they still have bad weeks for all three cars. And I don't mean weeks where they all wreck. Like, there are weeks that Spire just legit shows up, does not qualify well, and doesn't run all that great. Now, there's other weeks where they run really good. And I think until Spire figures that out, I don't know that we can really expect Hocevar to have the same chances of winning as Gibbs, because I feel like Gibbs could show up about any week. He's a good driver with a great car. I think it's just going to take the right situation happening or the right circumstances for him to finally get one. And I think once he gets one, he'll start firing them off.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because I was of the opinion that Ty Gibbs probably would have had won a race by now. Large asked us very early on the season over-under number on Ty Gibbs wins. I think I took over half a win, but even that hasn't cashed yet. And like I said, I thought it would have. So I think that it's interesting to compare those drivers who are both in pursuit of their first win.
You think they both get it next season then? I think I'm closer to believing that they both get it next season.
I'm probably stubborn on my opinion. I think Ty Gibbs will get one, and I'm skeptical, but cautiously optimistic that Carson gets one. I would like to see it. I'm not confident it will happen.
We see that third season seems to be a sweet spot too. We were made aware of it again this year once Harrison Burton had gotten that win, and they compared it to when Chase had gotten his and Kyle Larson had gotten his. So it's like that magic third season that Ty Gibbs is rolling up on. So perhaps that works in his favor as well. And then Hocevar might be another year out. Either way, I just thought it was the Carson Hocevar show for a little bit. In general, I thought the race was good. With the whole Jeff Gluck poll, there was 75% said that it was good. I thought that it was a good race beforehand. I know that a lot of people had answered no because of all the controversy surrounding the ending. Did that controversy all around the ending really sour that race for you, Spider, or was it still a good race? Moonhead, is the 15 lead changes among 7 drivers, 6 cautions for 66 yellow flag laps. Average speed of the race was 76 miles an hour. 6 of the final 8 drivers finished in the top 10. The other 2 were Bell, which we know about, and Reddick, who drove into the garage saying his fucking car was on fire. So it seemed like on paper it was a pretty good race. Does that get ruined by all the shit that happened at the end for you guys?
I wouldn't say the race itself does, because I still think it was a great result with watching Blaney win, and even in his celebration, he didn't know. He went into the post-race press conference, and he flipped the script and asked the reporters. He said, "I got a question for you. What the hell happened?" Yeah. But I don't know. I don't think personally it takes away from the result. I do think it amplifies and loudens the conversation about, is this the best format for the playoffs and to determine a champion? And I don't think I can sit here and say I am of that opinion. You look at Kyle Larson, who was far and away a leader in wins this year, including 2 in the playoffs, and he's on the outside of the championship 4 right now. I don't know that that's the best format. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I do know what the best format is. I know everyone kind of has their own take on what a good format looks like, but I don't know that this is the best. And again, you see this happening and a lot of people sharing their opinions. And I think there are some valid criticism to that. I do end up agreeing with the end result we got. It was shitty what happened to have Bubba answer for manufacturer orders. Hey, have his car inspected. Was your tire truly going down? Did something in your car actually break? It was shitty for the Chevys, and like I said, Carson Hocevar, who I was enjoying watching cut through the field, kind of check up and just fall in line and become a blockade. And I could be wrong. It might not even been Carson Hocevar. I know it was Austin Dillon, one other Chevy. I don't know who.
No, it was Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hocevar was in the mix though, so
Yeah,
there were a lot
okay.
of there was
Yeah.
a line of Chevys
Yeah,
behind him. So.
Yeah. So my point is, I feel like both sides, unfortunately, kind of did what they had to do to get into this position, and NASCAR had to make a decision. I think they had to make a decision. They did the right thing. They took time, they reviewed the evidence, and they made a call. And unfortunately, I was very complimentary of Ross Chastain when we saw the Hail Melon. I loved that move. I had people that weren't in NASCAR. Hank Lockwood was watching football, run over and ask me, what the hell did I just watch? What was that? That was a great day for the sport. But the reality of it is, NASCAR decided, hey, we're going to put a rule in place to prevent this. As good or as bad or whatever your opinion may be, this Hail Melon was the last time it will happen. And Christopher Bell kind of broke that rule. He rode the wall. Now, don't get me wrong. As I just said, I think both Chevy and Toyota were guilty of some sort of manipulation to try to get their driver in. However, I think Toyota's was much more egregious. I think NASCAR made the right call. First of all, Christopher Bell was running pretty poorly all day. He was struggling out of the cars in question. And then you look at, they tried literally on the last turn, Bubba just basically pulled over. And I don't know if you were watching on the broadcast, but it was the most egregious trying to cheat thing. Literally at the last second, the graphic updated and they're like, whoa, it's a tie now. Yeah. What's going to happen? And then I was like, all right, what did they just try pulling? It felt very much like they were trying to steal what, in my opinion, from my naive perspective, was William Byron's 4th spot in the championship 4. I am siding with NASCAR. I think, again, I said it, both teams, both Chevy and Toyota, manipulated the race. Who was more deserving? In my opinion, it's William Byron, for the simple fact that Toyota cheated much more egregiously and had a worse car for a majority of the race. Byron was up there. I'll hang up and listen. I do care to hear everyone's take on this. And again, some context, I have $5,600 worth of championship futures on DraftKings on William Byron. I was prepared, and I had just as much on Kyle Larson. So I needed the Hendrick boys, at least one of them, at the big dance next week in Phoenix. So that's my extra context. But I do remain of the opinion it was Byron's spot, and NASCAR made the right call, guys.
So, Moonhead, did it ruin the race for you, first off, before you even talk about the controversy? Did it?
Yeah, my bad.
No, absolutely not. There's no bad. I appreciate you getting it out there. What did it do for you for the race?
For me personally, I thought that was the best next-gen Martinsville race we've ever had. So from that standpoint, I feel like all the shenanigans would have happened at we could have been racing at Texas, and I think they would have been trying to check up or whatever if they needed to. So for me, it didn't ruin it. I do think it probably cost it 10 to 15 points on the Gluck poll. I think that race should have been in the 80s at least. But for me personally, no, it didn't ruin it, because like Spider said, I think that this was more of a championship format issue than a Martinsville issue.
You want to burn the championship format down?
Yeah, honestly, after this, yeah, because I'm kind of with Spider. I think NASCAR kind of did what they had to do and stayed fairly consistent with what they've done in the past, but it also kind of set the precedent of, okay, if you're willing to tell your spotter and crew chief and a team executive to stay home and sacrifice a little bit of money, you can kind of do whatever you want to manipulate and get your spot in the championship 4 if it comes down to it. So I think they're going to need to overhaul it. I'd like to see the old 10 race chase come back with some tweaks where maybe they offer more spots for winners, so the winning you're in thing kind of still matters, but maybe we take less winners and actually take some points guys as well, and then just do a straight up 10 race stretch. Because I think that could produce a lot of excitement, but it's not going to come down to, okay, Austin Dillon can't pass William Byron at Martinsville or William Byron's season's over. I think you'll still have guys that are able to race around each other, because it won't be a matter of 1 point. It might be a matter of 5 to 10. And that's still exciting. It's just a little bit harder, I guess, to manipulate. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, obviously teams have been doing it like the DM said. There's been teams bringing extra cars to the racetrack in the 90s. I've seen there was one year a truck championship was close, and I think somebody brought like 6 trucks or something. It happens. Stuff happens. Teams are always going to find an advantage, but that looked stupid on TV. Like, it was borderline embarrassing to watch people form a blockade behind William Byron and not pass him. Bubba pretend to have a mechanical failure. He's swerving all over the track, frantically trying to get back to Bell. Bell don't know what's going on, so he bombs it off into 3 about Rex, and then he panics and throttle. I don't think he was even trying to wall ride. I think it was sheer panic. I think he just was like, I got to get to the line, and throttled up. And seemingly he, in my opinion, got the worst end of it. I don't think Chevy really got what they deserved. I don't know if taking Byron out was the answer, because once again, it's the drivers aren't making these calls. They're just out there trying to make the most of it. But something needs to be done, because to me, I think from a viewer and from a fan, and honestly from anybody watching that objectively from the outside, I think it makes the sport look kind of like a circus.
I got so many fucking questions to ask on follow-ups, but the predominant feeling on social media and beyond is that William Byron was the one who did nothing wrong. He benefited from other people doing something wrong, but he did nothing wrong. And I don't know what the secret text group for Chevy drivers is that, where William Byron's like, if it's me, you better fucking make sure you block Brad. Like, I don't know, whether or not Byron is totally in the clear, but it would seem like I would agree with that. Byron did nothing wrong. So what happens if they just do a final 3? And they say, you know what, we can't make a decision here because he had benefited from the race manipulation, and then Chris Bell clearly broke the rule, the wall riding rule. Or can you do a final 5 and let Larson in, which obviously people would burn the fucking place to the ground. Like, do you add more people like they did with Spingate, where they put 13 people in with Jeff Gordon, right? So they've done it before where they've tricked around on that. Is that one of the answers then, to sort of fuck with the final number at the drop of a hat, and all of a sudden it'd be the championship 6 are going for it or championship 5 are going for it in Phoenix? Like, what would you think? Or is it just, let it go like this?
I don't think there's any way they could go 3, especially in that instance when you'd have, in my opinion, the 1A and 1B teams in NASCAR. That is Hendrick and Joe Gibbs on the outside.
Yeah.
And then I don't think you could.
Joe Gibbs doesn't have anybody in the Xfinity or the Cup Series playoff championship.
Yeah, I think if they were gonna do it anyway, they would add a car rather than take one away, because you look at the Jeff Gordon being added into the playoffs, which I will defer to Moonhead to speak about. But if I feel like the precedent has always been add as opposed to take away, although I don't know, watching that blatant manipulation on both ends was the closest to just DQ them. I think there honestly is a case for make it 3. Not that I would want to see that, and again, I think it'd be foolish for NASCAR to leave out Joe Gibbs and Hendrick, but it was almost so egregious manipulation that they deserve to not be there.
How bad did the championship how bad did this format get it wrong? I'm going to answer first and say I don't think they got it that wrong. I don't mind rewarding people who do very well in the playoffs. I know everyone is pretty butthurt about Larson, but when you look at the championship 4 of Byron, Blaney, Joey, and Reddick, and you put them head to head against the 4 that got knocked out, which is Denny, Larson, Chase Elliott, and Christopher Bell, is that like a glaring one's better than the other? Like, if you go, who's the best there? You put Larson up against Blaney. You put, Chase Elliott up against Tyler Reddick. You put Joey up against Denny. And you put William Byron up against Christopher Bell. I think those head-to-head matchups, and I just did those off the top of my head, I think those head-to-head matchups aren't overwhelming favorites and underdogs. Don't you think? I think they came pretty close to getting it right, even though people aren't giving them any kind of credit.
I think there's certainly a conversation to be had that the 4 that were lost in the Elite 8 or the 8 down to 4 round is just as good as the championship 4 themselves and would make just as good entertaining. I mean, you have Denny Hamlin going for his first championship. You have NASCAR's fucking 18-time most popular driver back in there. You know, there's just as much to watch for, but I think it goes back to the fact that this season has just been crazy. Like,
yeah.
And you said it last week, Large, or maybe it wasn't last week, but like the 8 final playoff drivers that we had was some of the best. Like going from 8 to 4 was going to be nearly impossible. That segment we did was one of the hardest things we did recently. And it wasn't easy to pick those 4 drivers. So I don't know. I think part of me, as much as I'm saying this isn't the championship format, it's just like it is what it is. And with those 8 that we had, any 4 would be good. And I do feel as though this 4 is just as good and exciting as the 4 that were unfortunately eliminated, although they have some characteristics. Like, I mean, Tyler Reddick going for his first for 23-11 in the midst of a fucking lawsuit versus NASCAR. Then you have Joey Logano continuing his trend in an even year and getting another championship. Then you have Ryan Blaney, who could be the first back-to-back champion in the elimination playoff era. It's like there's a lot to watch for. William Byron, the iRacer, can he make it in real life at the highest?
The 24 and 24.
Yeah.
Like I think the storylines are there also.
Right.
And I don't see that big of a benefit of one to the other. I know that you can make an argument for both. And it was the point we made last week. Muna, for a guy who doesn't like this playoff format, did they get it that wrong at the end of the day coming into this race in Phoenix?
I do, because I saw Denny interact with the guy. I just found it. His name's Daniel. I don't know how to say his last name, but Daniel something. He's got a graph or a chart or a little graphic he made where he did the championship 4 rankings across various stats and like points per race, average start, average finish. So he did it for the final 4. Denny wanted to see it for the guys who were eliminated, and the guys who were eliminated across the board really, it makes a strong case for them being significantly better throughout the entire year. Especially guys like Larson and Larson's number 1 in every category except average finish and top 10. So, and in those he's 3rd and 6th, whereas you got a guy like Logano, he's 14th in points per race, 15th in average finish, 11th in laps led, 13th in top 10s. Is that really a guy that should be racing for a championship? Now, under this system, absolutely, because like we talked about a few weeks ago, Paul Wolf, super smart guy. They've nailed the strategy several times, done what they have to do. So I don't want to discredit what they and their team have been able to do. But from a strictly statistic standpoint, or from a racing purist standpoint, I think that honestly, out of the 8 drivers we were left with, this one's completely ass backwards going into Phoenix.
Yeah. And I saw what you were talking about, and not a single championship 4 driver ranks number 1 in any of those key metrics that this guy had sent along to Denny. One of the things that guy didn't mention in those key metrics was playoff wins. And that's all that fucking matters, right? And we know that's all that fucking matters. So that's why I tend to think that if people know that this is, you just can't question it. You can maybe ask for tweaks and whatnot, but for this structure that we have in place, it was fucking exciting. I didn't mind Harrison Burton pushing somebody out of the 16th spot, even though he was 36th in points, because his dad was there and he doesn't have a ride next year, and it was interesting storylines. Anyone can fucking win. Cinderella story out of nowhere. Briscoe had the twins. He didn't have a ride. Now he has a ride. There's all these different things that I'm not as down on this playoff system, and maybe because I don't know any better, but I also think that there is a definite recency bias with this, because so many people hit me up and say, Large, it was so fucking boring at the end of the year on some years where somebody was such an overwhelming point favorite. I also understand the argument that it's not creating superstars like Jimmy Johnson anymore. Like, we can't have guys who are going to repeat so many years in a row in this thing. And if we do, it looks like it's going to be Ford drivers, more specifically Penske guys, because Joey's going for his third, which puts him in rarefied air. I think there's only 9 people who have 3 championships or more. And then Ryan Blaney is looking for, to double up, which hasn't happened again in fucking years. So I don't know. I'm not as jaded on this as everybody else. And I'm really looking forward to all the storylines that are going to be created at Phoenix. I can't wait. If Tyler Reddick wins and he has to get the fucking trophy from somebody that they're suing and not have a charter, to me, that's delicious. I love the idea about that. So there's a lot of shit going on that I love. But I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, NASCAR threw out a lot of fines and suspensions last night. We're taping this on Wednesday. So 9 suspensions, crew chief, spotter, and an exec from each team of Trackhouse, RCR, and 2311. Each of the drivers, although they weren't given any kind of suspensions, but that's Ross Chastain, Austin Dillon, and Bubba, were all fined $100,000. And all those teams, which I just mentioned, were also fined $100,000. 50 driver points, 50 owner points were also assessed to all 3 teams. So $600,000 in fines, 9 suspensions, and we'll throw in some other stuff. I mentioned Ty Majeski's in the championship 4 in the truck series. He didn't make it to a mandatory media day yesterday. $12,500 handed to him. We talked about the sissy slap that Chandler Smith had given to Cole Custer, $10,000 to him. So NASCAR went fucking crazy.
Ty Majeski was voting, by the way. I feel like he should
was voting.
That.
That's right.
Yeah. At least that's what he said.
Yeah, civic duty.
I think he posted a selfie of him with the "I voted" sticker on.
That's fucking
they
awesome.
Still got his ass.
Yeah. So I had asked the NASCAR Insider on my way to work today, because Spider had made a perfect thing. Wait a sec. This is just money and no real suspensions for people who are still involved in the playoffs. And I was like, yeah, it's fucking money. I don't know if Ross Chastain wants to cut a check for $100,000. Was I naive in not knowing that the OEMs pay these fucking fines? And that if Chevrolet's culpability here is 400 of the 600,000, less than 200 that 2311 has to pay, that's money well spent to get their driver into the fucking championship 4. So it's an absolute bullshit thing. Do you guys have any, and this is just one person who had told me about this, that Chevy is going to cut the check for it, so it may or may not be true. If you guys have any insight to how these, or if anyone at home has any insight on exactly how these fines get paid, and this isn't a single fine where one guy does something and gets fined $10,000 for the slap. No one is stepping up to give Chandler Smith $10,000. He's got to pay that. But this $600,000, which sounds like a fucking huge number, right? It's a $600,000, yeah. It's over $500,000, and it's just going to go away by the manufacturers. And if that's the truth, that's fucking bullshit, right? Like, no one's getting fined here. Do you have any kind of nuance to that on who's going to be paying this thing ultimately?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't worry about money I don't have to pay. I don't worry about other people's bills and shit. You know what I mean? I mean, that might sound kind of insensitive or whatever.
No, you're not pocket watching.
Yeah, exactly. So I never really thought about it. But, I mean, to me, if I'm Chevy, Chevy, a big corporation, if you have obviously an initiative and priority to be involved in NASCAR and compete at the highest level, $200,000 or $600,000, it seems like a drop in the bucket to have one of the 4 spots and ideally like a 25% chance to win a championship. I think they would take that all day. And I think, honestly, Joe Gibbs would probably have done the same if given the opportunity.
Do you think Bubba Wallace gives a fuck that and by the way, every team is appealing these punishments, and NASCAR is going to rush the appeal through and try to have a final decision the day after this podcast drops. So by Friday, we're supposed to know whether or not these suspensions and fines are staying as is. But you think now, at the end of the day, Bubba Wallace gives a shit that Freddie Kraft's not going to be there, that Booty Barker's not going to be there. Booty Barker, it's supposed to be his last race, with the 23 team. Do you think he gives a shit $100,000 that he's not going to have to pay? Like, who gives a fuck? Austin Dillon or, Chastain, I don't think they give a fuck now.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Bubba's not worried about any of that stuff. I think, unfortunately for Bubba, he's just been – I feel like some of these drivers would pay the fines themselves to not be involved. Like, you think Bubba Wallace is going to want to have to answer to this? Hey, Bubba, what was wrong with your car? Did you really have a tire going down for, like, the rest of the season? He was taking, direct orders, likely, in indirect terms on his radio that the team had. Like, he knew what he was doing, and he was following instruction. And now I feel like he's just opening up a can of worms and has to deal with all the criticism and, feedback following that when it really wasn't his call. So I think they're not worrying about the fines or this. Well, at least Bubba, I feel like, has got more to worry about than just some fine that he won't be paying.
But people have come to me. Did you see NASCAR handed out $600,000 worth of fines? But to who? To fucking Chevy? Does this make a dent, Moonhead? Does this stop anything?
That's kind of what I was saying earlier. If these teams and manufacturers are willing, like I said, to sacrifice a few spotters and crew chiefs and executives and write a check, did they really learn their lesson? And that's why I think that's what makes the biggest case for the need of a change to the format, because they very clearly have figured out how to manipulate it now. And NASCAR's set the precedent that this is the punishment for doing that. So I don't know. I don't think that it really, I don't think that they deserved more necessarily, because then you start getting into the issue of, okay, like, where do you draw the line? Who actually is at fault? Like, William Byron, did he know any of this was going on? Like, I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he probably was just driving and holding on for dear life and hoping nobody passed him. So would it be fair to take him out of the championship for something Chevy did? Maybe it would be, maybe it wouldn't be. But regardless, if the teams and manufacturers are willing to write these checks and send these people home for a week, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, I don't see why it would, right? Because Chevy made out like a fucking bandit here. They did. They made out like a bandit here. And not having $100,000 come out of Austin Dillon's pocket, not having $100,000 come out of Ross Chastain or Bubba Wallace's pocket, changes the whole complexion of somebody making sure, because they can't fine or punish the OEMs. There is nothing in place in the rule books that says that you can go after them. And I don't even know if they want to, because they're so, integral to the way that NASCAR runs. So they didn't fine or suspend, they didn't suspend a single driver. So Austin and Ross and Bubba and William and Christopher Bell, nobody got suspended on that point either. So even though this looks pretty good on a headline, it's a bullshit punishment, and I don't think it's going to be able to change anything. So maybe NASCAR will do something in the offseason, because by the way, the drivers' meeting this week is going to be something, it's probably going to be an hour and a half long before the Phoenix race. So maybe NASCAR can put something in place before next season that can nip this in the bud, or perhaps they're not going to. Do you think if William Byron wins the championship, it's sullied because of the situation surrounding on how he had how he had beat out Christopher Bell in Martinsville? Does that make, you know what I mean? Because there's asterisks next to everything, right? We always have asterisks.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so, because he has, out of the guys, I know we were talking about the stats of the Final Four earlier, he has had a really good year. Yeah. And I think, once again, he's just driving the thing, and I have kind of taken the approach, I don't know about you guys, with these situations this year, anytime they come up, I don't really want to hate the player, I hate the game. Same thing with Harrison Burton. I thought it was badass when he won Daytona, but at the same time, I did think it was a little dumb that, a car that was 30 something in points or whatever could knock a car that was 15th out of the championship. So I don't think it would discredit him. I think it's just part of it. I think if he goes out there and wins Phoenix fair and square, people aren't really going to have an argument, because they've faced their punishment. You know what I mean? NASCAR laid down their punishment and said they're good to race this weekend. So they're good with NASCAR. I guess that, they should be good with everybody else.
I think that's a reasonable answer. Spider, does this sully Byron's championship, which I know we just got a reasonable answer, and also does this change the complexion of the Phoenix race? Because I don't think there's going to be any race manipulation in Phoenix. I don't think we're going to get this 2 weeks in a row.
I agree with Moonhead, and it's for what you just said. I don't think there will be race manipulation. I think if Byron wins, it would be kind of seen fair and square, and it's for the reasons Moonhead outlined. You see, William Byron started the season literally the best way you could, winning Daytona 500, and then has been relatively hot throughout. Granted, he's cooled off a little bit, over the summer there, but he got hot when he needed to, and then I think it was like 4 or 5 straight weeks of playoffs where he was finishing within the top 5. So feel any type of way you want about my opinion about what happened between him and Bell or whatever side you're on. I do think you have to be objective and admit and give flowers where it's due on William Byron's season this year, and I don't think it would be looked at differently.
How fucking stupid are people on the radio? Like, they have the first radio and the second radio, but everyone gets to hear both. They have to release them both, the transcripts. How fucking stupid are you? I will go back to 2013 with the Richmond Spingate race. I'm sure you remember it, Moonhead. For people who don't remember it, Michael Waltrip Racing had manipulated the race. Clint Boyer had caused a spin out when his crew chief had said, hey, you still got that poison ivy on your right arm? Scratch it now. And then Boyer just fucking spun out. They brought in Vickers for a green flag pit stop that he didn't have to go on, all to push Martin Truex through. And it wound up being absolutely catastrophic for the team. MWR did not exist, I think, 2 seasons later. Napa had pulled their sponsorship of Truex and gave it to a young kid named Chase Elliott, where it is right now. So the response to Spingate in 2013 was absolutely fucking catastrophic. And I wonder, when that was happening, if everybody in the crowd felt the same way as the people in the crowd of Martinsville. I spoke to somebody who was at Martinsville, and they felt like they were being punked watching Bubba just all of a sudden slow down like that. Watching these other guys basically become Secret Service security for William Byron and block everybody else out. Like, at some point in the race, everybody in the stands had said, wow, Byron's either doing a very good job at blocking these 2 cars, or these 2 fellow Chevys are doing a very good job blocking for Byron. And it became, abundantly clear that the latter was happening. So when 2013 had come around, were you clutching your pearls about this, Moonhead?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I thought the decision NASCAR made was probably worse than the format, because at this time, you got to keep in mind, this was 1 driver pitting and 1 driver spinning out, and I guess there were a few other games, but it wasn't, to me, it wasn't, at least from an optics standpoint, near as bad as what we saw on Sunday, just in my opinion. I think that it just, it was dirty. It was bad. And honestly, that was kind of the year that I feel like NASCAR was starting to lean into this whole win and you're in thing. That was the year, if I could be wrong, somebody could grill me in the comments for this, but I'm pretty sure that was the year they started the wild card chase format, where they took like the top 10 on points, and then the final 2 spots went to winners who were outside of the threshold or whatever. And it created, once again, like we see now, just at a much bigger scale, it created a crazy situation where you had guys who had to finish ahead of other guys because they had won or whatever, and that's what it gets. So honestly, I didn't like it then. It didn't look near as bad. I thought NASCAR handled this weekend pretty decent. I thought in 2013 it was terrible to take Truex out for something he himself didn't really
was William Byron
to do with. And then on top of that, they take Jeff Gordon, who missed it, and put him in, but also put Ryan Newman, I think it was. So they ended up with, like, instead of 12 people, they ended up with 13 people. And it looked, honestly, just as dumb, if not dumber, than what we saw on Sunday. So I think NASCAR this time learned from their mistakes with that. I think if we'd have looked like a joke if they had 3 this weekend. We'd have looked like a joke if they had 5. You just gotta hit them with a penalty, have your 4, and then reevaluate in the offseason if we're going to change something.
Would code words have made this any better, Spider? Would scratch that poison ivy as opposed to saying, does the one car know about the plan or whatever it was? Like there was something. Is he in with the system? I honestly, like, was it one of the?
I kind of enjoy hearing how dumb they are on the radio sometimes.
There is
me
a lot
doesn't
of
want them to
stupidity.
smarten up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a great. That's one of the great kind of resources we get in the broadcast experience, especially thereafter, is when people pull the radio and you hear something bizarre that happened during the race. But part of me feels like the code words are just as fake or like dumb and also unnecessary. You look at Bubba Wallace, and I didn't listen to his whole team radio, but the part that I did hear, it didn't sound like they had any code word. It sounded like he just kind of knew what to do. So
well, Freddie was keeping him up on the points, which Freddie then said on Door Bumper Clear, Freddie Kraft, I would do that anyway.
Right.
I don't buy that.
Yeah,
I think they have they have meetings beforehand, and they're like, hey, if we tell you with how everybody to go,
here's
Bell
what you
needs
do.
a spot.
But now, Moonhead, to stay with that right there. If you're the spotter, if you're Brandon McReynolds or Freddie Kraft or one of these guys, what else can you say then? Like,
well, I'm not doing what Austin Dillon spotted. I'm convinced he must be like a NASCAR informant or something. Like I feel like when this is all said and done, because all he has done all year is incriminate them on the radio. I mean, he's screaming "wreck 'em" at Richmond, and then they're having to defend themselves with that one. This time he's like, "Do they know the deal?" And
it's
come on,
fucking
guy,
crazy.
So they suspended him again, but I don't know. Code words probably make it a little better, but I think, which you want to get real conspiracy theorist, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys have ways of communicating we don't even know about, but I guarantee you they have very, very, very thorough meetings leading up to this. And guys like Bubba, who aren't racing for really anything at this point, are probably very, very, very aware of where their teammates and other people within their manufacturer, what their situations and scenarios are. So I'm sure whether they want to admit it or not, and I love Freddie, I love Bubba, but whether they want to admit it or not, when Bubba heard the situation, he knew exactly what he needed to do.
But why is the system set up, and I'm not talking about the playoff system, which we just spoke about, why is the system set up that a guy that you like Freddie, Brandon, whoever else that's involved with this, that they're willing to fall on their sword? We saw what happened with Parker Retzlaff, like earlier in the season, when he didn't seem like he was being a team player, and everyone had went to the mattresses for the kid, saying that he's got a race to win the race, all that kind of stuff. This was much more important. It was a more important race with more important drivers. But what are they afraid of? Like, let's say Bubba blatantly lied about everything that's going on with his car, and he went on camera afterwards and blatantly lied. If he didn't do that and said, I was trying to protect my Toyota teammate or something, what do you think Toyota does? Is there a closet full of fucking Yakuza just ready to chop his thumbs off if he doesn't go to the mattresses for these manufacturers? Honestly, like, Ross Chastain doesn't really give a fuck if William Byron wins. I don't think he really cares. I don't think, Austin Dillon does. So who comes down on them if they didn't do that? Because we know that NASCAR did come down with them definitively with the suspensions and the monetary fines. What would have been the other thing if they would have said, fuck it, I'm not doing that. I'm passing William Byron. They had said the same thing to Shane Van Gisbergen. And they were like, Shane, this is Blaney. He had done it to you earlier. Get him back. And Shane was like, okay, got it, and didn't do anything because Shane Van Gisbergen never does anything wrong. The guy's a perfect specimen, and I fucking hate him for it. But what made these other guys essentially sell their soul? Like, who's coming down on them that makes them do that? The Chevy muscle?
They saw what happened to Parker Retzlaff, and they were like, that can't be me. And now they just follow team orders directly. I don't know, though. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I feel like just for the sake of their job security, but I don't know who determines that more. Would that be the team or the actual manufacturer? But I can't say I knock them for following orders. Especially, feel like NASCAR, you can't take your seat or job security for granted, and a lot of these drivers seem to be of that opinion. So if there's an ask from the team or the manufacturer, I feel like 99% of the time they will abide, especially when there's nothing for them to gain on the line.
27 minutes to make a decision. Was that too long? I kind of liked watching the squirming. William Byron was uncomfortable, and Christopher Bell looked like the cat that swallowed the canary. Like, he knew he may be in trouble, he may not, but he's got to stand up for himself, put on your big boy pants, and, and then he gone over to William. He's like, that's not how I would have wanted it to happen. Congratulations, William, the whole deal. 27 minutes, was that egregious, or did you guys enjoy that tear drinking session?
I enjoyed it. I mean, I think it was a little bit of just like kind of nerve-wracking to wait and watch and see what was going to happen. But I've been critical of NASCAR when they rush off the air. So to see them stay on the air for 27 minutes when we really didn't know if we would have a definitive decision by the end of it or if we would need more time to figure out what was going to go on, I thought it was fine. And I also think that this was a decision that NASCAR really needed to take their time with. So the fact that it only took 27 minutes is almost kind of deserving of compliments, in my opinion. But I was fine with it.
And by the way, when NASCAR was doing it, they're like, we're not looking into the race manipulation from the OEM perspective. So they gave themselves that type of cushion to go until last night. Did you think it took a little too long, Moonhead? It's a personal question, I guess.
No, I would rather them take as long as they need and get it right, or make an effort to get it right, than rush and get it wrong. So I 27 minutes, I thought NBC did a phenomenal job. It didn't feel like 27 minutes to me watching it. I thought NBC did a good job of kind of breaking down everything that happened, and we got our calls. So I think NASCAR has the right to take as long as they absolutely need to make a call.
I thought that one of the best texts we got afterwards was from Spider. Imagine if Blaney doesn't pass inspection. That would have been
something.
That would have been fucking something else. How about this for an idea for Phoenix, just to like mix things up? You have your championship 4, but you just put them out there with only a couple other cars. You put Carson Hocevar, Ricky Stenhouse, John Hunter Nemechek, Ross Chastain, and Austin Dillon, but they all have spikes on their car. You make it out to be a fucking death race. You have those absolute monsters out there chasing after those. That's just an idea for NASCAR to maybe float by. Anything else you want to talk about as far as these penalties before we move on? Did we beat it to death, or is there anything else that you guys want to talk about as far as that goes?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered.
I wanted to have a guest on this week, and I just don't think we could have had anybody who could comment on this because they all have OEM relationships. I think plenty of people would be like, yeah, I saw the Bell thing and he did ride the wall. I saw when he gassed, and, like the whole deal. People are very comfortable talking about that. But the rest of it, I don't think you can get a real honest answer from just about anybody. So that's going to be it. Let's talk about the next race coming up, the final race of the year. But before we do that, NASCAR wants to remind you that 2025 season is right around the corner, and it kicks off with one of the greatest weekends in sports, the Daytona 500. The adrenaline of Daytona 500 is something you have to experience in person. Nothing like witnessing the stars of NASCAR battle for position going 200 miles an hour on its 2.5-mile speedway. 40 drivers will compete with the likes of everybody, Chase, Ryan, Denny, Ross, Bubba Wallace, as they try to make their mark to start a historic NASCAR season. You don't want to miss a once-in-a-lifetime sporting event. I'm not sure who exactly we're taking down, but Spider and I will be there. I think we're going to go down with a couple of the betting guys. So purchase your tickets today for the 2025 Daytona 500 at Daytona500.com. Again, Daytona 500 is right around the goddamn corner. It'll be in February of 2025. We'll be there. You should be there too. Go to Daytona500.com and get your tickets. So this is it, guys. This is the last one. We're not going out to Phoenix this year. We'll be out in Arizona a couple of weeks later for the Barstool Classic. But Friday at 8 o'clock, we have the trucks on FS1. Saturday at 7:30, we'll have the Xfinity Championship on the CW. And then Sunday at 3 p.m., in the final race of the season, we're going to have the Cup Series Championship live from Phoenix on NBC. How pumped are you for this, Spider? How pumped? First of all, it's been a long road. How do you feel about the season as we're going into the last race?
I think it's been a great season. I mean, we've talking a couple weeks now about all the several photo finishes we've seen this year. We saw different drivers win that we had no, expectations for. We saw other drivers we thought were going to be really good, kind of a little bit quieter than we thought. And I think we've had exciting playoffs there throughout. There's been some great storylines, a lot of driver movement, silly season, and then obviously, as I said, the on-track stuff has been phenomenal too. So top to bottom, I've been really happy, really encouraged with what I've seen. I think they kind of, I don't know, this season has been better than last season in my opinion. So
I agree.
Kind of trending upward. And I think, again, into next season with the championship we have this week and then the schedule we have for 2025, hopefully we can continue to build on this momentum and keep growing.
And we've had courtroom drama.
Yep.
I mean, everybody who covers NASCAR was outside of the courtroom this week. The judge hasn't made any kind of ruling to grant an injunction for 2311. They're going to try and get that done sooner rather than later. But MJ was there with his lawyers. Denny showed up. By the way, he showed up in a suit with the sneakers. I don't know. If you're going to go to fucking court, throw on a pair of shoes. But, so we have all that drama. We had a lot of stuff. So it was a long and windy road, but I'm immensely happy with the way that this season had gone. Where do you rank this season as far as other seasons past, Moon?
It's on up there.
Okay.
I think even with it's almost like a race poll. I feel like the playoffs, the second half of the playoffs, there's probably been some things that have happened that may stay on people's mind just because it's fresh. But from start to finish, the racing we have seen, the finishes we've seen, tempers, storylines, even the extracurricular stuff with the lawsuit that's probably not great for the sport. It's still entertaining. Like, it has just been a wild year, and I'd say unforgettable. I don't know where necessarily I'd rank it, how far back we'd go, but if I had to describe it in a word, I'd say it's an unforgettable season.
We had one very good punch, the Stenhouse punch. He I don't know. I thought that was very photogenic and very cool to watch, even though I'm a Kyle Busch fan. And then the second one that we just got was a little wasn't too good. So maybe we get a real punch at fucking Phoenix. With that, let's make some picks into this final week of the year. So Picking the Tires brought to you by DraftKings. Before we talk about the NASCAR lines, the NBA is back. A new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from behind the arc? Who's crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. They got everything that you want there on DraftKings. You want exotics, you want straight up and that, whatever the hell your comfort level is as a gambler, DraftKings has it all. And that's from somebody who is a casual gambler who's having a lot of fun with the sports book this season in particular. And if it's your first time, new DraftKings customers you just bet $5 and you can get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code RUBBIN, RUBBIN. That's code RUBBIN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Again, we have the benefit of taping this one on a Wednesday, so we actually have some lines to look at, which is very refreshing. I'm going to log back into bet. Spider, do you want to go first on who you like this week? Would you like me to go first? What would you want to do?
I'll go first.
Sounds good.
And I'll take Ryan Blaney.
Okay.
I think he is the guy to beat this week. Penske is bad fast at Phoenix. You look at the last 7 races here. Ryan Blaney has 7 top 10s, 6 of which were top 5 finishes. I'm really intrigued by him. Even last year, he didn't win the race. He still won the championship. I think that could be on the table as well. I don't know if it makes more sense for you guys to take him to win the race. I think he's 4 or 5 to 1 right now, currently on DraftKings. Let me see. He's the favorite at 4 to 1.
He's 4 to 1, yeah.
And I don't know. Like I said, I could see him winning the championship, not winning the actual race outright, like he did last year.
Yeah, this is a perfect setup to Ryan Blaney. The way he finished in Miami, Martinsville, going into Phoenix, and he said that in the post-race interview. Let's just do it again.
You know what? I'm not going to take him to win the race. I'm going to add him as a future, and that's what I did. So DraftKings has been doing this King of the Court promotion. I won a $314 bonus bet on DraftKings because every night of the first 10 days of the NBA season, they gave away $1 million, and they divided it up between everyone who picked the player who was the King of the Court, meaning they had the highest points, rebounds, assist all together of a single night in the NBA. I had Paolo Banchero, so did 3,200 other people. We split $1 million, and I ended up with $314. I put that $314 on Ryan Blaney on DraftKings, plus 275, I believe, was at the time, 250, to win 785. So I have existing championship futures on both Blaney and Byron. Hopefully one of them two can win it. Outside of those guys, if I were to pick a non-playoff driver in this race, I'm a little bit intrigued by Christopher Bell, who's 5-1, but that's a little chalky. I could see him racing with Vendetta and kind of being pissed off. And then also Ross Chastain and Martin Truex. Ross is 16-1, Truex 22-1. Ross won here last year. I feel like it's always when we write him off that Ross shows up. Outside looking in, last race of the year, I could see him
without his crew chief and without his spotter.
Yep, even without that. And then Martin Truex, just give me one final time, his last full-time race. And
you have to throw a couple on Martin, right? I mean,
in 7 races here, he's got 5 top 10s and 4 top 10s, along with a win.
I'm taking Larson. So I thought, you want to know people who are riding with a vengeance. Christopher Bell is going to be riding hard, right? Obviously. But so is Kyle Larson, the best driver who's not competing for a championship. So I will take him at plus 800. And then who's going to win the championship? Again, I have probably I probably have the most money on the line already for Joey Logano. But I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. I would just love that storyline. So I'll take Tyler to win the championship. I'll take Kyle Larson to win the race. And that's it for me. Anything that you are seeing? Let me see if there's any props out on that. Ryan Blaney versus Joey Logano. Oh, yeah, so they have some pretty good head-to-heads. And again, you guys go on DraftKings, you're going to have team props, player props, driver props, all that kind of stuff. The manufacturers are even. It's basically plus 180 for whatever manufacturer you choose. Oh, actually Ford is a little bit leaner. It's plus 160. So there's a bunch of stuff to look at, but I'm going to go Larson for the race, Reddick for the championship. What do you got, Moon?
I'm going to go Reddick for the race. I'm going to go Reddick for the championship and Denny for the race, just for the storyline. I just want to see that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. So either way, this has been a long season, and we'll be back next week, as I said, with the Cup Series champion, whoever it may be. So we appreciate your continued support. Thank you so much for the DMs and whatnot. And we'll see you next week on Rubbin is Racing.